Good evening, everybody.
Hello, Caesar.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening. Are we being joined by anyone else, or is it just us?
Now, Claire will be joining us, but she might be a little late. She's actually in another board meeting, evidently, at the moment. But we could get started without her.
All right, great. Ms. Brenda, do you want to get us started here at 6:31?
Sure, we'll start with roll call. Vice President Pettis?
Key.
Thank you. And Director Cepeda?
Here.
Thank you. Next is Pledge of Allegiance or observation of moment of silence.
I personally will be silent, but you all are free to either be silent or do the pledge, whatever your pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of agenda order.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda order.
I concur. Holy move forward.
Thank you. Next agenda item is public comment. At this time, Madam Vice President, we do not have any public comment.
Wonderful. You may move forward. Thank you.
Item 4 is the minutes, accepting the minutes of the October 12th, 2020 Planning Committee meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And I concur. So let's start.
Next item is discussion 5A, review the updated 2021 West County Wastewater District Investment Policy.
Sirs, who will be presenting this evening?
Good evening, Vice President Seth and Director Cepeda, Justin Lovell, Administrative Services Department Manager. I will just briefly talk about the investment policy. So we are providing updates to the investment policy. This is, is required to do this once per year. And a lot of the updates that we're having here are actually just a lot of cleanup of just some of the words, clarifying some of the meanings of some of the different areas, adding references to applicable government codes in the different sections for the different types of investments, as well as changing titles where they have changed since the last time. Whether it's now it's called the Planning Committee, and then my position title has changed as well. So we've been updating that as well. So just generally the core of the policy stays the same. This is updating to current government codes. Those change periodically, and I'm happy to answer any questions about this.
Director Cepeda?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions and suggestions. So Justin, thank you for bringing this up. I know we have to do it annually, but thank you for the work and putting it in front of us. I was going through it here in the red line version. And under policy, and I don't know if it's appropriate if I give you some of my notes as we go along. So under the policy section, section 2, I believe that we should rename it to just say West County Wastewater, because I think that's where we're going. We're trying to get out of using the word district and maybe using the word agency instead in parentheses. So it is the policy of the West County Wastewater and then parentheses agency, and then making sure that we reference agency throughout the rest of the document wherever it says district.
Okay. Yeah, there are some areas that this is our legal title. Well, I'll have to just check with our attorney Claire Collins on this. That there are some areas where we do need to reference the full legal title of West County Wastewater District, and
Yeah.
this, I just need to verify if this is one of the cases. But we could potentially make about the agency versus the district.
Yeah, I think we had this discussion before about where we can and where we cannot be formal. And I think that policy one we need to talk to Ms. Claire about, because some of them we are restricted by either regulation or otherwise. So we need to make sure that we can do that.
Mhm.
And so we can just check it just to make sure. And
Okay.
I'll be fine either way. I just want to make sure that, because that's sort of been the direction of where we're moving to. I mean, even the logo
Right.
right above, right? It's got the word district removed.
Right.
The next section is, I guess still under policy, would it be section A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sixth paragraph under prudence. It references trustees, and our official title is director. So I wasn't sure if we should update that to reference district directors or some, because I know what a trustee is and director, so I know that it's used interchangeably. But just making sure that we continue the same verbiage. I know a couple of weeks ago we were asked to see what was in our business cards as we get new business cards. So it obviously has something, some meaning somewhere where we want to use consistent titling.
Can I just interject?
Yes.
Can I just interject? I don't think it's talking about just board directors there.
That's correct. I do believe this is referring to those who are authorized under this policy, such as the general manager and any other delegated positions within the organization to make some of these investment decisions. And so this could be if we hired an outside firm to manage some of our money, they could also be referred to as trustees as well.
Yeah, that's a California code definition, Director Zepeda. If you go under the California government code, the trustee is defined. It is specifically defined, and it's not just limited to us. So that's why it's lowercase t. So I think that's why that's there.
Perfect. Well, I don't know, maybe we can make a note somewhere so that way, because I read it as us, the directors only. But it makes sense that it's
And I
everybody.
read it just the opposite.
No, I read it the other way. So that means there's some clarity needed. I don't deal with contracting on a day-to-day basis like Director Sedeth does. So she probably read it and said, I got this. I read it and I was like, I don't got this. So making sure there's some clarity, please.
Yeah. Our general counsel's here, so you may want to repeat that so she'll understand what you're saying.
Claire, good. I will say good morning, but it's not morning. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm so sorry I had to be late, and I'm going to have to drop back out again. So what are we talking about this evening?
No
All right,
problem. We're on the investments policy.
Oh, yes.
Director Zepeda is referring to a couple of things. The first question that came up was regarding the use of the name West County Wastewater District, and looking into, I know that we have been moving towards dropping the name district, and in some instances we realize that we have to use the full name for
That's
legal
correct.
reasons, and whether we can use the name agency or use the pseudonym, I guess, agency versus district, and recognizing that in many instances, that may not be appropriate because of regulatory reasons. So he wanted to check in on that. And then now he's at page, what page is this? 7?
Page 7.
23, we're under prudence. And he had a question. You can speak for yourself, Director Zepeda, about the clarity you wanted on the word trustee.
So maybe we should let Claire answer the first one, and then I'll go into the second one.
Sure.
So we're
So
going to bombard you so fast.
we can adopt nicknames. We can have different names on our, for example, our letterhead and our cards, but there is a requirement, and it comes back to something called the Government Claims Act. And the Government Claims Act says that if you want to enjoy the benefits of the Government Claims Act, which requires someone to file a claim and they only get a certain amount of time to make a claim against the agency and sue you, then you have to make it plainly clear that we're a public agency. So that's why the rules say you have to either have city, county, district, or agency in your name, and there's some other exceptions if you're some other kind of organization. But those need to be in your legal name. Now, if we wanted to change our name to West County Wastewater Agency, we absolutely could. We need to go through a process, but that's doable. But dropping the word district or agency, et cetera, from the name creates issues with notice to the public that we're actually a public agency. But I want to be clear, there's a difference between your legal name and sort of the nickname that you use, right? So for example, the City of Los Angeles's sanitation agency just goes by the nickname LA San. Orange County Sanitation District actually just decided to rebrand themselves as OC San. You can do that, but they didn't actually change the legal name of their agency. So that's the legal issue. It has to do with protecting yourself from claims. And I'm sorry, what was the second question?
So I guess, I don't know, are we clear? I don't know if we're clear with that. So the question on that was that under policy, the first paragraph under policy, it says it is the policy of the West County Wastewater District and then parentheses district.
Yes.
And my suggestion was that we remove the word district and then in parentheses, so remove the first outside of the parentheses district, and then in the parentheses, that district, replace it with agency. So West County Wastewater and then agency. But I guess what you're, I get what you're saying. It's just our name now, if you see our logo, just says West County Wastewater.
Yeah.
We were trying to move away from district. So the history on that, we were trying to move away from district because now we have districts. So instead of being West County Wastewater District, District 1 Director, right, you got too many districts.
Right. So I will tell you that with some of my other clients, instead of calling them districts, we call them divisions or wards. So that's the other way to go about doing it. But you as a public agency do need to have something in your name that identifies you as that. Now, I'm going to have to jump off in a heartbeat, but I will come back. And I'm really sorry. But that's, yeah, that's the reason why.
Then they'll say as is then.
Okay.
And if you're jumping up, then when you come back, we'll fill you in with everything else.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
All right, Justin, then my note there again was on trustees, but that makes sense. So we can just put a note somewhere to clarify what that means for a layman person.
Yeah.
Then I have a note here. Under social responsibility and socially responsible investment, towards the middle part there of this paragraph, says, and securing return on investment decisions may consider sustainable, socially conscious, blah, blah, blah. My question is, can we replace the word may with should? May is much softer, like we may invest in fossil fuel, but we may not. Right? And then should is more of a, we should consider sustainable versus may.
Right. I guess it's under because this type of investing isn't just one of the only, required types of investment that we're having either. So I guess we could change that. I think that one's an easy word that we should if we are investing in that type of, security.
Perfect. And with that same sentiment, is there anywhere else here that we can, does that socially responsible investing, is that all encompassing for the rest of the policy? Right, so that making sure that our agency is not investing in, oil or guns or war material, right? Is that all encompassing everywhere else in the policy?
Yeah. So it's very specific on the type of investments that we can have. And there is just the nature of as a special district, California government code already doesn't allow us to invest in a lot of those types of investments that like those types of things. Right now, principally we're investing our money through LAIF, this just gives us, which is the local agency investment fund that's handled by the state controller's office, and they principally invest in U.S. Treasuries. So it could, it just gives us options, and then allows, and this keeps us in with the government code.
Okay. Excuse me. My next question is under section B, delegation of authority. I was trying to see, because there's the purple and there's the red, and I wasn't sure if they were both additions and deletions, maybe by different people. Is that why they're purple and red, or is there...
Yes, yeah, it was. There have been multiple people working on the changes, and so yeah, it's just the color is a different person.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if there was something there, then they got removed, and then they got put back in, and then somebody else went in there, so I wasn't sure the sequence there. So it sounds like the original, or the original policy, it's always been with the general manager as treasurer of the district. So we're not really changing it. We're just cleaning up some of the work.
That's correct. Right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. And then actually it's still section B, the last paragraph, which goes over to the next page. We're crossing out, I believe it says a system of controls to monitor compliance with this policy should be adopted, periodically updated, and followed by the board of directors, general managers, treasurer, and district staff. Why are we looking to remove that out?
This particularly, I think it just it makes it more, because it makes it more complicated for the administration. Essentially, we already have this policy is essentially a system of control that, as long as the board of directors approves this particular policy, there's already I think these safeguards in here, and so this is just partially just being redundant. So this is part of clarifying that this is not necessary in this section.
Okay, I see where you're going with that. All right. Let's see if I have anything else. And I believe that is all I have for right now. So thank you. Back to you, Ms. Chair. That is all I have for right now.
Thank you. I think the only thing that I would say is, and it's just my preference when we write policies, it's just a style preference. Is the numbers written out words, and then the numbers in a parenthetical behind it, just so it's clear. So if you say 30%, you write out 30%, and then you put a parenthetical behind it so that there's no confusion behind it. And I think it's harder when it's red line, so then it's not clear. Do you know what I mean? Because you do it sometimes in here and then sometimes not. Because it says $500 million, and then there's a parenthetical that says 500 million. But then sometimes it says the word to, but then there's no parenthetical to. So I'm just, it's my own narcissistic style. That I like it very consistent throughout the document. So if we can just clean that up. If it says 20%, let's just write out 20% and then put a parenthetical 20%, just so it's even like that. And the government code, if we're gonna quote the government code, can we just put the link in the document? Because I think it would have been easier if Director Zepeda is able to click on that link, and then he can go to the code and then he can read it for himself. And he'll see where it is. You're so still, you look like you're frozen.
Oh, me?
Yes.
What am I supposed to do? Move around?
Yes, I know, your eyes are like this and you're like this.
Well, I'm paying attention.
He's like,
Yeah.
you look like you're frozen. So I think that if we can put links in the document to the government code, I think it makes it so much easier when we have these policies. And I think this for all the policies.
Yeah.
These
Okay.
just, it's just a style tip from myself to you. It makes it so much easier for people to follow it because then they don't think, they know that it's not your rule, Sir Justin or Sir Andrew.
Mhm.
They know it's not my rule. They know that these are the government rule that you're following. And last tip, and I just thought about this when Director Zepeda was speaking, and it's just something that I do whenever I'm writing policies myself, and you can take it for whatever it's worth. Maybe you ask Ms. Claire her opinion on this, but when it comes to, when he mentioned the word trustee, and I just thought about this, I always just write something at the very beginning of a policy that says either capitalized words or words that are not herein defined have the meaning as defined in the public contract code or in the, the California code of regulation, something like that. So that if someone doesn't understand what a word means, they can go to there and find the definition as it's defined in the contract code. That way we don't have to define every word in every policy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So the overall word, like trustee, is the word as defined in the government code that you quoted. So that's my 2 cents, 5 cents.
Okay.
But
Sure.
otherwise, I think it looks good. I like the changes, and I think it's especially the ethics and conflicts of interest. I'm glad that that's showing up in more than one place. I think that's good to repeat that as often as possible. Anything else, Director Zepeda?
Nope,
Are we good?
that was an easy one.
Okay, so I think that that will, if we can do that, that'll make this easy to present to the entire board. When are we planning to bring this forward?
We should be able to bring this the December 2nd meeting.
Okay, great. Great. I think we're good on this one. Ms. Brenda?
Okay, thank you. Next item, 5B, review update to the general manager spending authority resolution.
Okay.
Andrew,
Um,
start.
Yeah, I can take that
Okay.
since Claire's not here right now. And I can you call up the red line document, Brenda? Or you want me to share my screen?
If it's easier, if you have it up already, you can.
Yeah, I have the from the web page. I can, yeah. Let's find it. There. Everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay. So, Vice President Suddeth, the reason we wanted to bring this back is there were a couple of changes that we thought about that we would like to make. And since this had come to the planning committee already, we didn't want to just take it directly to the board without running it past you guys first, so you were fully aware of anything that we had changed in it, because it is a slightly different document. And where that is right here under procurement. We just added some clarifying language to be consistent with current practice. And that is here for the $75,000 per project for capital facilities replacement and improvement. That includes the related design services. So like if we have a contract with Lee and Rowe or Corolla or somebody like that, and they are designing a capital project that's already been identified, budgeted for, et cetera, the same thing. So in other words, it's not just for a construction contract, it can also be for the design portion of it.
Sure.
Specific project. So that was just to clarify, and it's been happening, and what the former general counsel had said was okay anyway. So here we just wanted to clarify that since we were coming back at it. The other one is we just went through this process with applying for the grant with the Office of Emergency Services, which we can talk about more. But it was a very short time frame, and we applied for $300,000 for some emergency response equipment, et cetera, that's been made available statewide. for purposes of being prepared for power shutdowns and things like that. And so what we wanted to do here is add this language that says that in addition to the authority to approve applications for grants or any district grant programs approved by the board, we are adding and the authority to apply for and receive grants from local, state, and federal entities for district purposes. Because in some of these applications, even this OES one that was a very quick turnaround, we do have to have the authority delegated by the elected officials to the general manager to be able to apply for it. They did allow us, and they were cognizant of that because they knew there was a real short turnaround time here, that they actually said that we can come back, you know, if audited or asked for documents, we just need to demonstrate that. So it's something we could do after the fact, and we did talk to President Alvarado ahead of time, so he was fully aware of what we were applying for. And then, of course, we'd have to come back to the board anyway to accept that grant the way things are currently written. But what we're asking for here is that that authority is already with the general manager, that we're able to go ahead and apply for those and then have that demonstrated authority in this policy that we could attach to the grants that required that, unless some specifically require resolution like the one we had with the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority, for example, in which case then we, of course, do the resolution exactly as they want it. But that's what this language is, and we wanted to bring that forward and see what you had to say, and that would be it, the changes in the document.
Thank you very much. Director Zepeda.
Yeah, let me find my notes here. All right, overall, it looks, again, the overview is that we're just updating it and cleaning it out a little bit.
Under procurement, that's correct. We just added a couple of clarifying clauses. But the grant applications is new. It had previously only applied to the district's grant programs approved by the board. This is, we're asking that there's authority for the general manager to apply for these grants.
And I wanted to see under notification section 1.4C, page 21, under notifications, I want to see, is there a way to be able to receive, I know that we get a check, what does it call it here? We get some kind of report, a check register already from the GM on items that she sort of used. Is there a way, and I'm not sure what the actual wording is, but is there a way to get a report that shows any pending costs that the GM in general, this is for any GM in the future as well, that individual, the board is notified if there's any cost that's coming to the agency, even if it's under the 50 or 75, so that we know if, and then using the example from down below from the procurement section for special counsel, if we are getting special counsel for whatever reason under the 50,000 threshold, that we are kind of notified that we've done this, or it's coming along, or something's there if we haven't already paid for, if it's not on the check register, or would all that appear under the check register?
I'm going to maybe ask a clarifying question or see if I've got it right, and then ask Justin to opine. I'm not perfectly clear, but I think you're saying that if we'd entered into a contract, say $45,000 contract with some professional service to provide some design work or something like that, and so it wasn't coming to the board, that you wanted to be notified of those kinds of things?
Yeah, something that just tells us that this is coming, and maybe it stays at 45, maybe it goes up to 80. Just so that way the board is aware of any liabilities that we have, because that becomes a liability. right? And we have to check the whole budget as a whole at all times. So just making sure that we know that there's not, $140,000 contract somewhere out there.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how we put guardrails on something like that, because, for example, the board passes a budget and we have a budget for doing, say, X million dollars of capital projects, and then we come forward with a report after the first quarter and say, and monthly with the investment report and the check register, et cetera. And then we say, oh, by the way, remember that capital project, might be entering into a design contract in a couple of months. It's worth $300,000 or something. I'm not quite sure where to stop, because, what is it, something that's not budgeted for or unplanned for, but we see that it's coming? But if something's already budgeted for like that, and we're operating and we're basically giving updates on the operating revenue and the expenditure spending, at that point, we'd be able to say if we saw something that was problematic, but I'm not quite sure where it stops.
So maybe it's things that, and again, I'm just trying to put this thought here, but maybe it's something that's unplanned. It's, again, using the special counsel legal services, right? That was a question that came up a lot in the past couple of months from several board members saying, well, we didn't know that we were paying special counsel on the side. And maybe it was just a matter of communication, or maybe it's a matter of, some of the board members didn't know that this happened because it just happens. So just making sure that people are aware, any future board members are aware of any unforeseen costs that are under $50,000. If they're planned, then they're already budgeted. We know what's happening. We know we're purchasing whatever. We already know that we're going to need it. But these are, I guess, more like unknown. So we just know it doesn't just pop out of nowhere that we've hired, special counsel for whatever reason without us really knowing. Because there was a couple special counsel that we, especially this year, that we've had to meet without knowing that they were there.
Okay, and so I guess, again, I'm a little unclear in that they were talking about, something up to maybe 50,000, and you're using special counsel as a specific example. And there may or may not have been operating budget that could have covered a cost. So it'd be like, well, that was budgeted. We didn't know we were going to hire that. But we did come to the board, for example, on the dewatering actions that we've had around the digesters. And we came and we got a preliminary contract, and we didn't have operating budget for it. And we gave an update to the board, and we said, you know what, we're probably going to be back in a couple months, and we're going to be asking you for a big chunk of change because we're going to have to issue a longer term RFP on this. And we certainly want to provide those updates to the board. That would be something, an example of that had not been budgeted for. We know it's coming. We don't have enough information to tell you everything yet, but we'll give you a heads up and a warning that we're expecting to be spending some money or coming for some money that isn't already budgeted for. And I think that we absolutely would want to do that and can do that as part of the capital project reporting, or if we saw anything that was unusual that was coming down the pike. I just wasn't quite clear what you were trying to get at or how much, but we do want to try to give you a heads up when we can.
That example you use, right, is a large amount, so that would have come to the board sooner or later. But the legal counsel, and again, just using this as an example, or maybe it's other consulting services, just so that we're aware that they're out there, that we're consulting on, trees or whatever it may be, parking spaces, or consulting on buildings, whatever it may be, that we just kind of just get a heads up. That's there, that's under 50. We don't need to approve it because we're already approving it through these processes that we don't need that approval. But that way we're just kind of made aware of how our money is being spent, even if it's under 50,000.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Justin to maybe
sure.
here, because when we do a monthly check register, you would see, and there'd be, there's a contract with X and we paid this much. It sounds like you would want something a little sooner that says, hey, we haven't been billed yet, but we did enter into a $40,000 contract with X to provide such and such a services. And that wouldn't have been a contract that would have come to the board because it was under the general manager's authority. but rather than wait for the check register to see that there's some bills being paid for this consultant XYZ, you wanted a heads up that here were some contracts that the general manager entered into. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. And Justin, can you respond to that?
Sure,
about
sure. Yeah,
types
I
of
think,
information we do give?
I mean, I think there's two things here is, you know, whether it's just showing the amount of contracts, you know, the amount that we have encumbered. I think that's probably the simplest way. It's not getting you specifically the detail, but as part, we don't currently show it in our monthly budget reports, the amount of money that we've encumbered, you know, that we're obligated to spend through contracts or other purchase orders. That would probably be the best way to show that we have a budget that the board has approved. We have expenses to date, and then our encumbrances would be our obligations to spend that we haven't spent yet, and then we would have a remaining balance, and that would give the board a little bit better idea of where we are with our for budgeting purposes. Are we in track? I mean, that's the first thought that comes to my mind if you're just trying to see it, because that would cover all these contracts that are under $50,000. Wouldn't necessarily give you the detail, but it would give it to you by the budget line item.
But would that give us a consulting or consultant services that, you know, maybe we ended up hiring, again, you know, either for legal counsel, or we ended up hiring to see if we need all this space in our office, right? That's been a topic of conversation. Do we need all that space? I mean, first we need it more, and now people are not working from the office as much. Do we need it? You know, if we end up hiring somebody, that won't be in our budget, and that could be a project that the GM might be working on, knowing that they can keep that amount under 50, and they'll sooner or later come to the board as a project that they're working on. But again, I just want to know the liability. What liabilities are pending, even if they're 50,000, just so that we have them, that we can keep it, because there's the money that we budget, but we could also, you know, smaller amounts might not always be budgeted, or we might be able to move money around in other projects that we may need at other times.
I mean, Director Cepeda, I think this kind of goes into, you know, like against what the whole spending authority resolution is really going toward, this is getting outside of allowing the general manager to do that management and then putting it back onto the board. So I think that's where I'm just trying to understand kind of what kind of information you would like to get, because a lot of this is actually part of the budget process. There are some expenses that we did not anticipate as part of the budget, but that's why we come back at a mid-year, you know, and come back to the board and say, look, these are a few of the things that we didn't budget for. We're asking for authorization we haven't overspent, because we can only spend as much as the board has authorized us to spend. So I just want to make sure there's understanding kind of what would you like to see out of this, and so that how we can make it happen, give you the information that would be helpful for you to make the decisions.
So let me ask you this, a real example here somewhat. So the special counsel, I know that we brought on several individuals to help us through different processes. And I, still being somewhat new, I've been here for a year, but I haven't had a chance to see everything that the agency is doing. Mm-hmm. When we went into closed session one time, we had a special counsel consult with us on HR issues and employee-related issues, right? And by comments from some of the other board members, they weren't sure who this person was. So could we have known somewhere based on the budget that we have 2 or 3 other special counsels sort of on hold? And maybe we have that answer already, and maybe it's just on us to know where it is, and that if you can tell me where, I can make sure to look at it going forward, and also for the rest of the board. But was there somewhere that we can go and see that we had, again, 2 or 3 other agencies aside from our general counsel already that were kind of there to help us with other work?
So let me, can I interject, please?
Go for it. Go for it.
Thanks. A couple things. These last few months was just totally different from anything we've ever experienced. Number one. So I think that we keep rehashing things that were just totally different because we had the just unusual situation with our general counsel and the general manager, for what she had to do in order to keep the business flowing, which we have charged her with doing, had to use her best discretion to hire people to outside counsel, which we have given her the authority to do, in order to address some of the issues that need to be done. We have hired new general counsel, and between the general manager and our new general counsel, they have the authority to actually hire additional outside counsel. I agree with Justin that some of what's being asked is actually undermining the whole purpose of spending authority. What I hear you asking, though, is for this report that's asking for information that may not be budgeted, but that the board may need to know. But what I'm reading in the notification, it does say that if somehow the revenues or the expenditures materially vary from the budget, that the general manager has an obligation to let the board know promptly what that is and to propose some kind of corrective action so that it doesn't happen again outside of her spending authority. And I think that if there's something there that you would like more than that, then I think we should propose that. What I don't want us to do is to make this so restrictive that the board has put its day-to-day management of the district. That is the general manager and the team that she has assembled. That is their job. Anything under the $50,000, up to $50,000, we need to entrust him to do. I don't want to see reports every time. What I would like to do is what I see on what I'm responsible for doing in my mortgage paying job. It's called a contract spend report. And the contract spend report we do on a quarterly basis, which gives the board a look into how money has been spent, how the GM is using the spend authority. So that gives more than just the check register. And it does show this type of more detailed information. And that may be this is what I'm hearing, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. That may give you more insight into this kind of information that you're looking for, because the contract spend report will tell you, we entered into a contract, the contract is worth $100,000, we've spent down $20,000, our liability therefore is $80,000 going into the next quarter, because it's a quarterly report. Or we entered into a contract for A&E services, on-call A&E, architecture and engineering services. With these 4 companies, it's on-call. The value of these A&E services is up to $100,000 for the fiscal year. Company A, we've used $20,000. Company B, 0. Company C, 0. Company D, $20,000. So we know that there's $400,000 that's possible to be spent between the 4 companies between now and the end of the fiscal year, and we've only spent $60,000 between the 4 companies. And we can have that contract spend report quarterly. What the value of that is, it will give us more detailed information, but it's only quarterly, and it tells you whether the contract is from 0 to $15 million. I think that may be more valuable to us rather than trying to get this staff to break their neck and tell us every time they're spending $15, every time they're spending $1,500 or $15,000. Let them have their spending authority as we have granted them already. This policy is not changing the spending authority. It's just clarifying what we've already granted the GM or her designee. So I would like to just recommend that maybe a contract spend a report is more along the lines of what you're looking for, based on what I heard. Maybe I heard it
Yep.
wrong. I don't know.
Nope.
Sometimes I hear what I want.
You know a lot more about contracts, you know the wording, so but what you just described is what I'm looking for.
Yes,
I wasn't looking at, every $15 or every time something happens, quarterly or something, just so that we know what the final liability is.
yes.
Right?
So, Sir
More than-
Andrew and Sir Justin, if that sounds okay with you, I can send you a sample of what I usually put together on a quarterly basis, and you can customize it to what you want. Would that work for you?
That is doable. That is something I was also thinking about, the type of report, not necessarily how you call it, but yeah, I was, what contracts we've entered into, what's the dollar amount, and how much we've spent over that period of time.
Yeah.
That's
So-
something that's
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that sound okay for you, Andrew?
We can take a look at that and see how that fits in with the section right there that says we'll also provide the board with periodic updates on operating revenue,
That's it.
capital expenditures, et cetera, because even in the example that you used, if we have 4 on-call consultants, we don't necessarily have $400,000 in liability. We have spending authority with these consultants, so it could be seen as a liability. But if we don't have project budget, or we're deviating from the expenditures materially from the budget, we have to tell you anyway.
Exactly.
And it just
Absolutely.
says that we have these consultants and we could spend them, but with those as-needed consultants, that's often, funding, and some cities, would make you say, hey, you got an as-needed, you have to show up, you have all the money for that, but typically you don't. That's exactly it. They're as-needed, so when a project comes and the project has budget, you can utilize that resource, but we couldn't utilize the resource if we didn't actually have budget. But it would tell you, Director Cepeda, that they do have a bunch of consultants out here that they could potentially use, and they've already got under contract. So it paints another piece of the picture gets painted in. So I think we can talk about that and see how we could report on some kind of contract status, and I think that's what Justin was referring to. Here-
Perfect. That would be perfect. Thank you. That's exactly what I was referencing. So thank you, Director Sennett, Vice President Sennett, for so eloquently picking my mind and saying what I was trying to say.
As part of it seemed like you were also after that we'd entered into a contract with, say, a particular consultant for some service that the board wasn't particularly aware of, although it's something we did as part of our operating budget because it was a service that we needed to figure out space planning, for example, in the building. And that could get reported back at some point, but you didn't know we'd entered into the contract. So you'd see it in the check register, but it might not, see what the purpose is. So I think if that's it, then certainly we can say, hey, we hired some services, here's what we did, and here's what we're up to, and how it's consistent with the capital program or, operating, whatever it is.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I don't want you guys to spend too much time on it, because I know you have a lot of other stuff to do too, but maybe if you can come up with something and we can tweak it as we go along, maybe less information, more information, something that of what you just painted a picture of, Andrew. So thank you for that.
All right. So Justin, I think that's something you think we can discuss and come up with relatively.
Yeah. I have an idea of type of report that we have that shouldn't be too complicated to put together.
Thank you.
Other than that, Director Spade, the items that I was bringing to your attention were the 2 that we made some slight changes to. So do either of you have any further comments on procurement, clarification on the 75,000 or the authority to apply for the grants, et cetera?
Nope. For me, nothing on that there.
Okay, and the grant application, I take it that was in response to the CSDA grants that you guys applied to? Right?
Yes, it was. It happened,
Yeah.
and Claire and I were having some conversations, and I was like, if there's a way that we could have some authority to do this and make sure that, because we don't want some of these to miss deadlines because we couldn't get a special meeting in time to get a signature. But like I said, I did talk to the board president. We wouldn't do this without, at a minimum, notifying the board president, letting us know, we're doing something like that, because we want you guys to know if we're finding money out there and potential grants. So it's certainly not something we're going to keep from you. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no,
exactly what it was. And then Claire
I think that's
suggested
great.
that a good way to do it might be to just put it in the authority so it's there, and then that's a document that can be shown to the state if they ever want to say, hey, did you really have authority to apply for that? And we say, yeah, yes, we did.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's, and I'm fine with these. I'm fine with the other change on the procurement
Okay.
supplies. I believe that, same comment I said before about the numbers. Just fix the numbers for me, please. The
Yeah, there's some
the
numbering.
stylist.
I sense that there are some numbering issues there.
Yeah, just write out the number and then put it in.
Oh.
Stylistically, you can fix that. I'm good. One suggestion when you bring this to the board, same thing, especially with the grant applications, because I know that Rhonda director in particular, she loves talking about the grants. So I would bring up, especially that this was in response to the 2 CSDA grant notices that came out last month, because I read those very closely and I like that we applied to those. So this is very timely. So I like that this was in here, but that's just my recommendation that you reference that, especially in the times that we're in. That's good. And FEMA also has some more grants that are coming out. Apparently, they're releasing some in the next 6 weeks. So having this put in is very timely. And when do we expect to have this before the full board?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
When do we expect to present this to the full board?
Oh, December the 2nd.
Oh, both of them. Oh, okay.
What about the last policy we worked on? When is that one coming in front of the board?
Same day?
All right, Director Cepeda, are you referring to the personnel policies that we discussed? That one has gotten longer. We've had some additional discussions, so it may come back to the planning committee before it comes back to the board. It's just that's a much bigger effort, over 100
Okay.
pages, and we want to make sure we get it right.
Okay.
Thank you. And I think you, Director or Vice President Seth, I think you might be, I think you're referencing to when you were saying numbers. Was it the district resolution numbers? Is that what you're referencing?
No. So when you say like 2, right, TWO, and then.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, under 1.9 investments is referencing the district resolution right above. So just making sure we change it since we're updating the policy that's affected.
Yes.
The district investment as a treasurer in accordance with district resolution. It shouldn't be, at least I don't think it should be 1-05-10B, right? It should be whatever the resolution above is.
Yes.
Can I make a recommendation on that? Why don't we just call it the district's investment policy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
We don't
that.
need to make reference to any number of resolution, and we're trying to get away from doing as many resolutions here, and we can just refer to the investment policy, whatever its current state is.
That's even better. Thank you.
Perfect. Yep.
You came in just in time.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry about that, guys.
No, good timing. We're good.
'Cause that
All
was-
right, Director Cepeda, are you good with this one?
I'm good. Yes.
Okay, great. I am too. Ms. Brenda, you're the star. Your turn.
Thank you. Next item is 5C, board reorganization, confirmation of date and process for selection of president and vice president.
So before we start this one, Director Cepeda, I wanted to add this one to the agenda just so we can limit too much discussion or chaos, as it were, when it comes time to talk about this at our general board meeting. So I asked Sir Justin if we could just talk about this and clarify anything that we needed to at our planning meeting so we can bring it forth at the general board meeting. Sir Justin.
So our recently adopted board policies and procedures speaks when is a president, vice president selected, and that's the first meeting in January. But it doesn't speak to the how. I know there was quite a bit of discussion during the when we were modifying the board policies and procedures about the how, and that ultimately did not get included in there. So we can discuss
I thought it did.
how it was last year. We had several. There was an iteration where it did, but now it is really just saying that the president and vice president will be selected on the first meeting in January.
I mean, that's the policy versus what we had before, switching it around to, because the original suggestion that we worked on was that the vice president would automatically become president, and then we would vote on the vice president, right? So we kind of knew who was coming along. But then the board decided that, nope, we don't want that. We want to be able to vote on both the president and the vice president. So that's a policy that in January we'll be voting for both president and vice president.
Yes.
Correct.
Because we decided we might not like the vice president.
Yeah.
We might not like that person to be president.
Yes. Exactly my point. So, yeah, I think that's already the policy. So I hope we don't try to go back and change it again. I think that we've already changed it twice this year, not even last year, this year.
I think of this year, and I just really would like us not to spend 4 more hours.
Yeah, I think we have to just get on and bring in, I guess we're doing it over Zoom, talk the reorganization, if there's new elected directors or not. I mean, we haven't had the election finalized yet, but if we have the same directors getting sworn in over Zoom, is that doable, right?
Yes.
And I guess
We'll have them sign the certificate and then we'll swear their oath.
And that would be in December.
That's
not actually
December?
in December. Yeah.
Okay, so that's December, and then right from there, figuring, I mean, we should just go right into the January and continue the voting based on the policy we adopted in June, July.
Well, the
Which-
policy is that you have to do it the first meeting in December, correct? Justin,
It
last
says-
year we just didn't meet in December.
The policy does say first meeting in January. However, we do have a caveat there, which is we run into the issue where there's another board resolution that canceled the first meeting in January. So the first meeting in January would be the third Wednesday.
I thought we canceled the first, I thought it said the meeting in December, and then we canceled December, which is why we did it in January.
Yeah, so the resolution about the board meetings that was approved, I believe it was 2019, when that action occurred. It was the second meeting in December, so the third Wednesday in December, and the first Wednesday in January were canceled, as well as 2 other meetings, one in August and one in September.
May I just read it? It just says at the first regular meeting of the board of directors each calendar year. So whatever meeting is actually held is when that would take place.
And then we'll be voting on both president and vice president at that time.
So when will that be?
It would be January 20th would be our first regular meeting of the
So
calendar.
so are we canceling the first meeting in January?
Yeah, that is a board resolution where it's been all those first meeting in January are canceled. Those regular meetings.
And we're canceling which one in December?
The second meeting, so that would be the third Wednesday in December 16th. Yes.
So January 20th is the date.
That is the date. Yes, that would be the first regular meeting in January.
I'm not coming to that meeting. That's the inauguration day.
That's inauguration day.
Yeah, I was like, isn't that inauguration day?
I'm going to
It
be in DC. I'm not coming to that meeting. I'm going to be.
I'll be in DC too, Director Suddeth.
Oh,
I
we'll
can-
be together.
I can bump elbows with you.
Yes. I'm telling you right now, I won't be here. So I'll just give you a heads up right now. Won't be here. We need
So
to rethink that.
I think we might need to do it on the 6th and cancel the 20th.
Yes, we need to rethink that. Seriously, we need to rethink it. So I'm glad we're talking about this tonight, so we can talk about it at our board meeting.
So maybe that could be part of the recommendation that we give towards a board reorganization, is that we look at the dates. Because the 20th is going to be a pretty big date, not just because we're reorganizing. The whole
Yes.
country is reorganizing.
Yes.
That's much bigger.
Yes. Yes, I'm taking my daughter to DC.
So
Miss Kamala is our family. You know, she's actually our cousin. So I'm not going. I will not be here. Sorry.
well,
Sorry, not sorry.
we can look at, you know, the board of directors can adopt a new schedule for their calendar of meetings. So that's something that we can talk about and bring back.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
and
So
and I'm
can we?
taking my daughter to Director Sedith, even though the new vice president is not my cousin. But yeah. But we can bring that back, and it's a fair point. And if I may, I would just like to mention, and obviously I wasn't here when you adopted a new schedule for board meetings, but one thing that the board can always do is really keep 2 board meetings a month on calendar, and then just cancel one. It's harder to add a new meeting than it is to take one away. And there are a number of statutorily required actions that have to be taken at a regular board meeting, as opposed to an adjourned regular, or as opposed to a special meeting. So it's sometimes more beneficial to have kind of more regular meetings and then just cancel them if you don't have enough items to discuss, right? Or if it falls on a funny holiday and you can adjourn it to a different date. But if you don't even have one to begin with, and you're a little bit stuck. So that might be something that you know, we can come back with, if that's all right, you know, if Justin and Andrew want to talk about how we do that.
I think, Claire, I think that one of the, if I remember correctly, I think one of the ideas behind canceling a given amount of meetings was so the staff knew ahead of time, so they could either plan PTO or they could just plan to do other work other than the meetings. And so we don't have to cancel it 72 hours before or a week before. We can, you know, people can schedule, and they can know that these meetings are canceled way ahead of time.
That's
So
really
that-
nice of you. That's really nice of you, but it's
That
not
was a-
legally necessary.
Okay, yeah, I think that was the thought. So maybe we can go back and revisit some of it, somewhere halfway. The city councils, a lot of the city councils take off, I believe, in September. So they don't meet the whole month of September. So people just know city council is shut down. Everyone goes on vacation. Is it August? August, September.
August recess.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's a decision for the board. It's just you're trading one for another, right? You're trading the ease of having a predictable board schedule that you could cancel, where if you do have to do the business of the district, there are just a few things under the code you cannot do at a special meeting. And so clearly, obviously, under your policy, this is one of them. And so just something to think about. And you can always cancel meetings far in advance as well if you're concerned about staff planning. I think normally it's not my experience that we're like, oh golly, it's 72 hours before, let's cancel it. Usually that's pretty well thought out a few weeks ahead of time. And for example, you know, you may want to look at the calendar of, you know, adjourned regular meetings, for example, during, you know, where you have the Thanksgiving holidays, or if there's other holidays that are important in your district. We could come back with a number of options as well. I mean, there's not a lot, but different ways to manage that. In general, I would really recommend that you guys try to have 2 meetings a month on the schedule, and then either adjourn or cancel them in case something comes up.
Okay. That might be a good idea. So maybe we can bring some of this up. Well, actually, I don't know if we can. On the board reorganization, is that something we could bring up as an update for this next agenda? Our next general board meeting agenda?
For the 2nd
Uh-huh.
or for the
Next week,
18th?
we can bring it up for next week.
For next week?
Yeah, we can bring it up. For the 18th, we have time.
Yeah.
We have time.
Right, so that way we can start talking about the schedule, and we don't have to wait, you know, 2 weeks before or something.
We have time.
Okay.
I will ensure that President Alvarado knows, and we can get it on the calendar. I mean, we can get it on the agenda.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem.
So what are we looking to get on the agenda on the 18th? Because we are, you know, we've just got a couple of days to do it.
We just need to get this topic about having it on the 6th instead of the 20th, the board election, the officers election.
All right.
Of January. So we would be talking about changing the Board of Directors meeting schedule starting in 2021.
Yes, so we will meet on the 6th and not the 20th. So Andrew, if we can just change that, this basically what we want to talk about at the next meeting. So cancel the 20th and meet on the 6th.
Well, I think what Claire was mentioning was that we don't cancel any meetings on the calendar, that we
Yes.
keep them all, and then we cancel them as we go along versus a set cancellation. So
I
maybe
agree.
that could be part of the topic.
I agree with that.
And obviously, yeah, most likely we'll be canceling the 20th, but we should schedule it and then make a motion to cancel it or something.
Yes.
Perfect.
It's MLK week, by the way.
And yeah,
Okay, so Claire, we can discuss what the title of that agenda item would look like, and it sounds like, it's really not really much of a report. It's just mostly a placeholder so that you guys can have this discussion around the meeting dates.
Yeah,
it'll be an action item, right? Not
It would be-
discussion.
Yeah, an action, but I mean, you can discuss, take action, but it's been agendized, so you can
Yeah.
have it.
yeah, I think we would just agenda it as board meeting calendar, amendments to board meeting calendar. And that would be then looking at what your options are for when your regular board meeting dates are.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Perfect.
Brenda,
Thank you. Next agenda item 6, matters from staff and general manager.
Nothing else except our new agenda item. On that.
I so appreciate your reports. Ms. Brenda,
Thank you. Agenda item 7, matters from members of the board. That's 7A, reports on issues or matters pertaining to the work of the committee.
sir,
No reports for me.
and yeah, nothing.
Nothing? Okay.
Adam,
7B, future agenda items.
For
sir.
that, yes, I have 2 questions. And we can bring in, hopefully by next month's agenda item, to talk about the PLA. I don't know if it needs to come back into this committee to discuss any of the last findings, so we can go ahead and approve it. So we can bring the PLA so we can make that final recommendation to the board to hopefully approve in December. So we can bring the PLA back as a future agenda item for the December meeting. And then,
The planning committee meets after the board meeting in December.
oh, is it tricking us there?
Yeah, December 2nd is the.
Yes, on
board
the
meeting.
11th.
Wow.
Meet on the
Um,
11th.
Claire, I don't know what your thought is on that, but I think it would be a good idea and a reasonable one to bring it to the planning committee for discussion.
Yeah, and if you'd like to, we could also, depending on schedules, we could also host we could have a special committee meeting if that helped us with the schedule in order to make sure that you were able to talk through it in time for the board meeting. That's something we can work out, and I'll just say that I've been working on that, and we're expecting to exchange some drafts with the council this week. So that's a process.
Perfect. Yeah, if the chair, Ms. Sedith, wouldn't mind maybe doing a special meeting either later in November or in December to bring that PLA forward so we can discuss it before the December general board meeting.
Absolutely.
Perfect. It looked like you were DJing there for a minute.
I know, I'm on another computer.
I'm like, are you DJing?
DJ Sharon. I'm on another computer, but I had to check and make sure, but I think just let me know.
Perfect. Yeah, maybe we can look at our calendars and then,
I'll work it
Something
out.
like-
Just
something
let
like
me know.
Monday, the 23rd of November. That's Thanksgiving week, but that's only 2 weeks from today. And I don't know how much we'll have back from the Trades Council, but we can find out, by then, Claire. We at
We-
least, give an update of where we are and what we're talking to them about.
Or we could do the 30th.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's another one there. It's just that same week. Okay. That might be better.
that might give you some more space for our negotiations.
And we don't always have to do a Monday. We could, if we need a few more days, we can do,
The 30th is
There
fine.
really aren't any more days after that one because Wednesday the 2nd is the
our
meeting.
board meeting. That's true.
So I don't know. I mean, quite honestly, I don't know that we'll have a document that's ready for approval but we can have the discussion still in front of the board meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as long as it's after 5:30, I'm fine. Either day, 23rd or the 30th. I have an appointment until 5 o'clock, 5:30. So if it's 6:30, if it's the same as this time, I'm good.
All right.
So 6:30.
Yeah.
All right. I have it on my calendar.
Which
All
day?
right.
23rd
And then,
or 30?
I'm
Which
sorry.
day? Which day? 23rd or 30?
The
30th.
30th.
Okay.
The 30th. 30.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. I have it.
And then I don't know if we have this, and I don't know if it might be more of a for staff, or I don't know if we need it as it's part of the committee or not. But do we have a list of all the policies and their respective numbers, and any policies that are referenced within other policies? So as I was reading through, right, and I was like, oh, it's referencing a policy, and I'm like, do we have, as we update policy A, and there's references policy 77, does that one reference policy number 62? And do we have something there? And also, if we happen to have a list so that this committee can take a look at it, and I don't know if I'm going to be part of this committee next year or not, but at least we can start figuring out which policies we want to tackle. And I don't know if Chair Sudeth or the chair of the committee does that already with staff, but it would be good to just kind of look at the list of all the different policies and just getting rid of some of the easy ones or the hard ones every once in a while. So, and I don't know if that's an agenda or if that's a report later on or something.
I feel like I'm talking too much, especially since I'm your new general counsel, but I do want to just mention on this that that's one of the things that we're looking at. We were just talking to Justin today about getting everything sort of lined up. Outside counsel had been working on some of those policies as well. So it's an important point you raise. At least I want you to know the general counsel is taking a look at that, and we're anticipating working with staff on it. But right now we're just kind of getting our arms around it all. But I think you make a really good point, is we need to have a consistent set, and then they need to be appropriately cross-referenced. And so if you give us a little bit of time, I'm happy to work with staff to try to make those easier to navigate. I think would be helpful for everybody. And I think staff agrees.
That would be great. Glad you're all in the same mind frame there. So thank you for that. Thank you. And that is it for me.
Glad you mentioned it because I know that Justin said that's what he's working on. So along those lines, when that's finished, I would like for us to revisit the SOP conversation. Because I know that we also wanted to look at the SOPs. But I know we're getting there too. So
When you say
future
revisit,
meeting.
when you say revisit
Future.
the SOP situation, I'm not sure what you mean.
Where we are on the SOPs.
Okay.
I know that we were making headway and getting a lot of them done.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to revisit where we are on the continuum of getting the SOPs written.
Okay.
It could be a future meeting. Doesn't have to be next month.
Well, there'll also be, okay, we can take a look. There's also part of that is, will come as a strategic plan update, because one of the things in the strategic plan is taking a look at the SOPs and CSO and operations and maintenance. I don't know if that's exactly what you're talking about.
That's part of it. Yes, that's good. And then the last one is as we go into the new year and as we get all of these updated, these policies that we've been updating, these documents that we've been updating, at some point I'd like to, and I know Ms. Claire you're working on, you mentioned these trainings that you'd like to have the board undergo. I'd like to talk about a training schedule for the board. And with that, I know we haven't been able to meet in person, but at some point, I'd like to have a calendar put together for that. So I'd like to talk about that at a future meeting, the trainings. And I know I've mentioned it several times in our other board meeting, and what kind of trainings I'd like for us to see. But I'd like a training schedule, and I'd also like for us to bring our binders in. All of us have binders that we have, our board binders, and make sure that those are updated. Since it's the same 5 of us returning to the board, to make sure that we're all working from the same set of material. I know that Cesar mentioned something earlier, Director Zepeda mentioned something earlier about someone not knowing certain information, and that Sir Andrew said is present in a document that we're provided every month. And I know that I myself, during these meetings, I'm on a computer. I have a binder. I have my binder next to me that I reference while I'm in the meeting. So I think that's part of what I would like to see at one of our meetings or training is just like a board prep session, like what it means to prepare yourself for these meetings. So just like a back to basics type of meeting, like recognizing that everyone has been on this board before, but that doesn't mean that you cannot have a back to basics instruction on preparing yourself better for board meeting or committee meeting, or, you know, so we can get out of here in a reasonable amount of time in some of our board meetings, or we can ask questions more succinctly or make our comments more succinctly and stay on target when we are meeting, and maybe look at some of our presentations before they are put before the entire board, so that we're not repeating what the last person said, or we're paying attention or whatever, but just something like something of that nature, if you follow what I mean.
If I can comment on that, I just want to say I've also spoken a little bit with the president of the board about trainings, and I think it would be great if there was an opportunity to have a bit of a workshop at one of our board meetings where directors could suggest some of their ideas, because I'm sure different directors have different needs. But you know, we're happy to provide certain of those trainings. I'm sure staff has some, but maybe that would be a good agenda item, since that's sort of what we're talking about right now, of workshopping the needs of the directors so that we can plan that forward. So I do have a list of some ones that I wanted to suggest, and maybe I could bring some of those to bear, and then the directors could also identify those, and then we could use that as an organizing principle to move forward on both the content that the directors would feel would be beneficial, as well as a schedule for when we would do those. For example, if they'd be part of an existing board meeting schedule or something like that. Does that sound right, Director?
Yeah, that would be great. But I would also like to open it up to not just the 5 directors, but also the general manager, and Sir Justin, Sir Andrew, and the senior staff that also attends these meetings, because they are an integral part of how we run the board meetings. So if we're not meeting their needs as well, I think that it's very important to me anyway. And Director Zepeda, if you feel differently, please let me know. But I think it's also important to me that we are also meeting their needs and their training needs in these meetings as well. So I think that kind of workshop is great if all of us participated and all of us had a voice in these board meetings, because it does me no good if they're coming in and they're presenting and we're like bombarding them with questions as if we did not even read the material before we came in. So maybe they have some feedback, or they have some needs themselves that they can express to us, or some training, something. Maybe they need some presentation training so that they feel like they're being more effective to us. I don't know. I'm just speaking, but
I think that it would be useful if all of us were participating in the training. Miss Brenda may want to participate in the training. She might have something she wants. But all of us who participate in the board meetings, I would like to open it up to everyone. Sir? Zepeda?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. But yes, Miss Claire, I would like to take you up on that offer to have a workshop as a future meeting. All right, Miss Brenda, you're the star of the show.
Adjournment.
See, I told you, you're the star of the show. You get to say all of our favorite words. Thank you all so very much. These are great,
Right.
great timing. 7:49, 7:51. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you for your participation. I will see
Thank
you
you.
in a few
Okay.
weeks.
Thank you.
Have a
Good
great
night.
night.
Everybody, have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.